poor single mom mistook him as her Uber driver, unaware he was her new CEO millionaire boss. The rain was coming down in heavy sheets, splashing against the cracked sidewalk of the low-lit street as Mia tightened her grip on her son's small hand. Her cheap canvas shoes were soaked through, and her thin jacket clung to her arms, doing little to keep out the cold. She glanced at her phone, her Uber app spinning again, searching for a driver she couldn't afford to lose. She had 1 hour before her night shift started, and missing it meant another warning, maybe even losing the job she desperately needed. Her 6-year-old son, Jamie, sniffed, wiping his nose with his sleeve. "Mommy, are we going to be late again?" She forced a smile, brushing the wet hair off his forehead. "Not if our ride gets here soon, baby. Just hold on a little longer." Right then, headlights cut through the rain as a sleek black SUV rolled to the curb, water spraying as its tires slowed. Mia exhaled in relief. "Finally," she whispered. The car looked way too nice to be an Uber, but sometimes drivers used whatever they had. And tonight, she was in no position to question blessings. She opened the back door quickly and guided Jamie inside, shaking off droplets. "Thank you for picking us up," she said breathlessly as she buckled her son in. "We really need to get to 71st Street. I'm running late." The man in the driver's seat stiffened. He wasn't wearing the usual Uber jacket or holding a phone on the dash. Instead, he sat in a tailored charcoal coat, rain still on his shoulders from getting out moments earlier. He stared at her through the rearview mirror, confused, but not annoyed. Not even close. "Ma'am, I'm not," he began, but he stopped when he saw Jamie shivering behind her. His jaw softened. He took a slow breath and turned back toward the windshield. "Seatbelts on?" he asked calmly. Mia blinked. "Yes, thank you so much." She settled in, clutching her purse, unaware of the choice he had just made, to play along. The same way CEOs in these chance encounters always did when someone unexpected crossed into their world. The SUV eased into the street, the noise of the rain filling the silence. She tried to dry her trembling hands on her jeans. "Sorry, it's been a long day," she murmured. "I'm starting a new job tomorrow. I really can't lose the one I have tonight, too." He glanced at her again, quietly taking in her exhaustion, the frayed bag at her feet, the child who leaned on her shoulder with pure trust. "New job?" he asked, voice low. "Where at?" "Hartline Corporation," she said with a tired but proud smile. "Front desk position. It's nothing fancy, but it's everything to us right now." His fingers paused on the steering wheel for a second, but she didn't notice. "What do you do?" she asked, hoping small talk would distract her from her racing thoughts. A beat of silence. Then he said, carefully, "I work in management." Mia nodded, accepting the vague answer instantly. People were private, she understood. It wasn't her place to pry. Besides, she was more focused on whether she could still make it to work on time. If her manager would let her clock in a few minutes late. If she could afford Jamie's inhaler refill next week. The SUV slowed gently at a red light. The glow reflected across Mia's tired eyes. She didn't see it, but the man in the front seat kept watching her in the mirror, just for a second longer than necessary. Something about her honesty, raw, unpolished, unfiltered, was quietly disarming. When the car finally stopped at the old brick building where Mia worked her night shift, she rushed out with Jamie, clutching the door. "Thank you again, sir. Really, you saved my night." She shut the door before he could answer. The SUV sat idle for a moment in the rain, its wipers whispering. Inside, the man, Elias Hart, rested his hand on the steering wheel, lost in thought. Tomorrow morning, he was scheduled to introduce himself as the new CEO of Hartline Corporation. And tonight, by pure accident, or fate, a single mom who had no idea who he was had treated him with a sincerity he hadn't felt in years. He exhaled slowly, watching her disappear under the building's awning with her sleeping child in her arms. "Mia," he murmured softly, as if trying out the sound of her name. Then he put the SUV in drive, unaware that a simple mistake, her mistake, was about to rewrite both of their lives. The next morning came too fast for Mia. She had barely slept after her night shift, barely managed to get Jamie ready for school, and barely held herself together as she hurried toward the downtown high-rise where her new job at Hartline Corporation awaited. Her cheap flat slapped against the marble floor of the lobby as she stepped inside, her heart pounding with nerves and hope all at once. She needed this job. She needed stability. She needed 1 week without a crisis. Just one. The lobby was gleaming, towering glass windows flooding the room with morning light. People in tailored suits rushed past her, tapping on tablets and greeting each other with the confidence of people who had never had to choose between groceries and rent. Mia swallowed, checked her reflection in the elevator doors, and forced herself to breathe. Her blouse was carefully ironed the night before, her hair pulled back neatly. She looked like she belonged here, or at least she hoped she did. She stepped into the orientation room on the 10th floor, where a few other new employees murmured to each other. She took a seat near the back, clutching her small notebook. A woman beside her smiled politely. "First day?" "Yes," Mia whispered, really hoping I do not mess it up. Before the woman could reply, the door at the front opened. A tall man in a navy suit walked in with a quiet authority that drew every gaze in the room. His posture was steady, his expression unreadable, but there was something about the way he scanned the room that felt deliberate. And when his eyes landed on Mia, her breath caught. She knew that face, the jawline she saw in the rearview mirror last night, the calm voice that said seatbelts on, the man she had mistaken as her Uber driver. Her stomach dropped so fast she thought she might faint. He gave nothing away. Not a flicker, not a smirk, not even recognition. "Good morning," he said, his voice steady and deep. "My name is Elias Hart. I am the new Chief Executive Officer of Hartline Corporation. I look forward to meeting each one of you as we begin the next chapter of this company." Mia felt the world tilt. Her chest tightened with embarrassment, so sharp she wanted to sink through the carpet. She could not even hear the rest of his introduction. All she heard was the pounding of her own pulse. Her mind replayed everything she said in the SUV. Her telling him she was late. Her rambling about her struggles. Her giving him directions. Her thanking him for the ride. She wanted to disappear. When the orientation ended, she tried to slip out quietly, keeping her gaze low and her steps fast. But just as she reached the hallway, a familiar voice spoke behind her. "Ms. Riley." She froze. Slowly, she turned. Elias stood a few feet away, hands in his pockets, expression calm but unreadable. Her voice cracked. "Sir, I am so sorry about last night. I had no idea. I should not have gotten into your car. I thought it was the Uber. I was desperate. And late. And He lifted a hand gently, stopping her ramble. "You do not need to apologize." His tone was steady, almost gentle. "You were doing your best in a difficult situation. You did nothing wrong." Her face burned with humiliation. "Still, I must have looked ridiculous." A faint shadow of something softened his expression. "Not ridiculous." She tried to read him, but he hid himself well, like someone used to being observed, analyzed, judged. "Focus on your first day," he said. "We will talk again soon." Then he turned and walked away, leaving her glued to the floor, her heart racing. The rest of the day blurred together. She learned her desk location, met supervisors, memorized phone lines, and tried to stay out of the way. But every time she passed a glass wall or a reflective surface, she saw her own anxious face staring back. And every time she spotted the top floor office behind the tinted glass, she felt that strange weight again. He knew who she was now. He knew everything she blurted out last night. And he was her boss. By late afternoon, as she sorted files in a quiet hallway, she overheard two managers whispering near the elevators. "The new CEO seems different." "You mean the charity rumors? Or the fact he showed up driving himself in the rain last night?" Driving himself? That cannot be right. Mia felt her pulse skip. Driving himself. Last night. In the rain. Her mistake might not have been a mistake at all. As she walked back to her desk, one thought repeated in her mind, tightening her chest. Why was a millionaire CEO alone in a rainy neighborhood, in a car without a driver, at that hour? And why? Why did he not correct her when she climbed into the passenger seat of his life by accident? The questions lingered, circling her like storm clouds, and for the first time that day, Mia realized something unsettling. Maybe last night was not just a mistake. Maybe it was the beginning of something she was not prepared for. The following days felt like a blur for Mia, each morning dragging her back into the world of polished floors, perfect smiles, and the distant hum of corporate machines. She tried to blend in, focusing on her duties, answering phones, and taking messages, but the tension between her and Elias hung in the air. Every time their paths crossed, His eyes would briefly meet hers, his expression unreadable, and Mia would feel a wave of heat rush to her cheeks. It was as though the brief interaction from the other day had etched itself permanently into her mind, an uncomfortable reminder of the mistake she had made. And yet, Elias never mentioned it. Not once. Every time he passed by her desk, his stride was steady, his gaze unwavering, as if she was just another employee, and yet Mia couldn't shake the feeling that he knew. Then came the day she couldn't ignore it anymore. After a long meeting in the conference room, where Elias had led a presentation with the calm confidence of someone who had always been in charge, Mia was gathering her things to leave when his voice called out to her. "Ms. Riley, could I speak with you for a moment?" Her stomach dropped, her fingers frozen over the pile of files she had just gathered. She tried to calm herself, taking a deep breath, and walked toward his office, her mind racing. Elias's office was sleek, the walls lined with dark wood and large windows that overlooked the city. It was everything Mia had imagined about a CEO's space, powerful, commanding. He stood by the window, looking out at the city below, his back to her. "Please have a seat," he said, his tone soft but firm. Mia sat across from him, her hands clutching her purse tightly in her lap. She could feel the weight of his gaze, even though he hadn't turned to face her yet. "I wanted to ask you how things are going," Elias began, finally turning to look at her. His eyes were calm, but there was a subtle hint of curiosity in his expression. "How's the new job? Settling in okay?" Mia swallowed. It's been good. A little overwhelming, but I'm getting used to it," she said, forcing a smile. "I'm just trying to do my best." Elias nodded, his gaze softening slightly. "You're doing well. I've noticed your dedication." He leaned against the back of his chair, studying her for a moment, his eyes flicking to the papers on his desk. Then he spoke again, his voice quieter this time, as if weighing each word. "Mia, I wanted to clear something up." Mia's heart skipped. Was he going to confront her about that night? Was this the moment he would finally say something? She didn't know if she was ready for it. He paused, his fingers tapping lightly on the desk. "I've been thinking about what you said the other day, about how you were late and just trying to make things work. I want you to know, I admire that. I admire your persistence. It's not easy, especially with a child." Mia blinked, stunned. That wasn't what she had expected him to say. Thank you," she stammered. She wasn't sure where this conversation was headed, but she wasn't prepared for this kindness, especially coming from someone like him. Elias leaned forward, his expression turning more serious. "I think we can help each other." Mia furrowed her brow. "Help each other?" she repeated, unsure if she had heard him correctly. Elias nodded, his eyes intense. "I'm starting a project at Hartline. It's a new initiative to support single parents, to give them the flexibility they need without compromising their work. And I want you to be a part of it. I believe your experience and dedication can contribute to something bigger than just answering phones." Mia's mind raced, trying to process his words. Was he offering her more than just a desk job? Was this some kind of opportunity? She opened her mouth to respond, but Elias held up a hand to stop her. "I'm not offering this as a favor. I'm offering this because I believe you can do great things here. You don't have to settle for being overlooked. I've seen how hard you work, and that deserves more than just being a receptionist." Mia sat back, stunned. The weight of his words settled over her, like a blanket, warming her against the cold reality she had been living. Could this really be happening? Could her life really be changing in a way she hadn't imagined? "But I don't have any special qualifications," she whispered, her voice uncertain. Elias smiled softly, his gaze steady. "You don't need qualifications. You have something more valuable: experience, determination, and a heart that wants to make a difference. That's what matters." Mia felt the heat of his words settle into her chest, a spark of hope flickering to life. For the first time in a long while, she felt like maybe she wasn't invisible anymore. "I'll think about it," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Elias nodded. "Take your time. But just know, the opportunity is there if you want it." As she left his office, her heart pounded in her chest. Elias Hart, the CEO of Hartline Corporation, had just offered her a chance, more than she had ever expected. And as she walked back to her desk, she couldn't help but wonder, was this a new beginning for her? Or was it all too good to be true? The next few days were a whirlwind for Mia. The offer Elias had made lingered in her thoughts like a dream she wasn't sure she deserved. She didn't tell anyone about the meeting, not even her best friend, and certainly not her son, Jamie. It felt too big, too sudden. Could she really take that leap? Was she truly ready for something more than just surviving? She tried to push it all aside, focusing on her regular duties at Hartline. The work was overwhelming, but manageable. But every time she passed Elias in the hall or saw him in meetings, a part of her couldn't help but remember his words. You don't have to settle for being overlooked. The thought settled in her chest like a heavy weight. It was the truth she had been hiding from for so long, a truth she had been too afraid to confront. Her life hadn't been easy, and she had never expected anything to change. But here she was, standing at the edge of a new opportunity, and she was terrified. It wasn't just about the job. It was about who she could become if she took the chance. Mia knew she couldn't live in fear of this moment forever, but at the same time, she wasn't sure how she could move forward. That night, as she tucked Jamie into bed and kissed his forehead, she felt the familiar weight of responsibility. She could stay in her comfort zone, where she was familiar with the struggle, where she didn't risk failure. But she couldn't shake the idea of something more. After putting Jamie to bed, she sat at her small kitchen table, her notebook open in front of her, the faint hum of the apartment building's aging pipes filling the silence. Her eyes scanned the pages of her to-do list, and then she closed the notebook with a sigh. She could make it work. She had to. But could she handle it all? Could she balance this new opportunity and still be the mother Jamie needed? The thought haunted her. The next morning, as she made her way into Hartline, her nerves were on edge. She could feel her heart pounding in her chest as she walked toward Elias's office. She had made up her mind. She was going to take the chance. She knocked lightly on the door before stepping inside. Elias was standing near the window again, his hands clasped behind his back. His eyes flicked over to her as she entered, and his lips quirked upward just slightly. "Ms. Riley," he greeted her. "I'm glad you came by." Mia swallowed, her hands clammy as she held onto her purse. She stepped into the room, her voice steady but hesitant. "I've been thinking about what you said," she began. "And I want to accept the offer. I'm ready to take on this new role." Elias nodded, his expression unreadable. "I'm glad to hear that. You won't regret it." Mia smiled, a mix of nerves and excitement rushing through her. "Thank you for believing in me." Elias tilted his head slightly, as if considering her words. "It's not just about believing in you, Mia. It's about seeing the potential in people who don't see it in themselves." Mia looked down at her hands, her fingers trembling slightly. "I've spent so long just trying to get by. I never thought I could be someone who does more." Elias walked around the desk, his eyes softening as he looked at her. "You already are someone who does more. And now, you'll have the chance to show the world what you're capable of." His words hit her harder than she expected. For a moment, Mia felt a lump form in her throat. "I've never had someone say that to me before," she said quietly. Elias's gaze remained steady, filled with quiet confidence. "Then it's time for you to hear it." He paused before adding, "This company can offer you more than just a paycheck. It can offer you a chance to grow, to make a real difference." Mia nodded, still absorbing his words. "I'll give it my all." Elias gave her a rare, genuine smile. "I know you will." As she left his office, Mia felt a strange sense of peace settle over her. It wasn't the kind of peace she'd felt when she was simply surviving, getting through each day just to make it to the next. This was different. This was the kind of peace that came from stepping into the unknown, of finally believing that she could be more than just a single mother, more than just an employee. She could be someone who was capable, worthy, and ready for a future she never thought was possible. It was terrifying, but it was also exhilarating. That evening, after work, Mia sat with Jamie on the couch, watching his favorite show as she thought about the steps ahead. For the first time in a long time, she felt like she was in control of her life. It wasn't about waiting for a miracle. It was about making her own way and trusting that she had the strength to handle whatever came next. The future was still uncertain, but for the first time in years, Mia was excited to see what it held. The next few weeks at Hartline Corporation were a blur of new challenges and responsibilities for Mia. She was no longer just the receptionist. She was part of a new project that Elias had trusted her with. Her days were filled with meetings, planning sessions, and constant learning. Mia could feel the weight of the opportunity on her shoulders, but for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel overwhelmed. She felt capable. Elias checked in with her regularly, offering guidance without being overbearing. He wasn't the type of CEO to micromanage, but he was always there when she needed him. And with every passing day, their professional relationship seemed to shift, becoming something more. It wasn't just the way he looked at her during meetings, or the soft tone in his voice when he spoke to her in the halls. It was the way he listened to her ideas, the way he valued her input. Mia found herself looking forward to their brief conversations. They weren't the long, drawn-out talks that she had feared. Instead, they were simple moments of connection, brief but meaningful. One afternoon, after a particularly intense meeting, Elias invited her to his office to discuss the progress of the project. "Mia," he said, gesturing for her to sit. "I've been impressed with how quickly you've adapted to the changes. You've been a real asset to the team." Mia smiled, the compliment warming her. "Thank you, Elias. I'm just doing my best." He leaned back in his chair, his eyes studying her with an intensity that made her feel both nervous and excited. "I can see that," he said quietly. "And I think you're capable of even more." Mia's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't expected him to say that. She had always been self-conscious about her abilities, always second-guessing herself. But hearing Elias say those words made something shift inside her. She wasn't just a single mother trying to get by. She was someone with potential, someone who could actually achieve something. "I appreciate that," Mia said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. Elias's gaze softened. "You're welcome," he replied. "But I'm serious, Mia. You have the potential to lead this project. I've seen how you handle the team, how you think through the problems. I think it's time we give you more responsibility." Mia felt a wave of panic wash over her. More responsibility? She wasn't sure she was ready for that. But Elias's confidence in her was undeniable. I don't know if I can handle more," she admitted, her hands twisting nervously in her lap. Elias stood up and walked over to the window, his back to her. "I understand your hesitation," he said, his voice calm and measured. "But this is how growth happens. You step outside your comfort zone, you take risks, and you learn from them. You don't have to do it alone. I'll be here to guide you, but I believe in your ability to succeed." Mia took a deep breath, her mind racing. She had always played it safe, always stayed within the boundaries of what she knew. But Elias was offering her something different, something that scared her, yes, but also excited her. "Okay," she said finally, her voice steady. "I'll do it. I'll take on the responsibility." Elias turned to face her, his expression one of approval. "I knew you would." He walked back to his desk and handed her a file. "This is the next step in the project. I want you to review it and come up with a plan. I trust you, Mia." As she left his office, her hands were shaking, but there was a fire burning inside her that she hadn't felt in years. She had accepted the challenge. And as much as it scared her, she knew she was ready. That evening, after finishing her work, Mia sat at the kitchen table, reviewing the file Elias had given her. Jamie was already asleep, and the quiet of the apartment gave her the space she needed to think. Her mind raced with ideas and strategies, her fingers moving across the pages as she began to outline her plan. For the first time in a long time, she felt like she was in control. This was her moment. She wasn't going to let fear hold her back anymore. The next day, Mia presented her plan to the team. She spoke with confidence, detailing each step she would take to move the project forward. When she finished, Elias gave her a nod of approval. "Well done, Mia," he said. "I knew you had it in you." And for the first time in a long time, Mia believed him. The days that followed felt like a whirlwind for Mia. Each task, each new responsibility added weight to her shoulders. But it was the kind of weight she welcomed now. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was thriving. Her project was taking shape. Her team was looking to her for guidance, and Elias's quiet belief in her seemed to fuel every step she took. The long hours she had put into perfecting her plan began to pay off. As she presented her progress to Elias and the board members, she found her confidence growing. She wasn't just the new employee who had made a mistake and got lucky. She was a leader, someone who could drive change. But with each success came new challenges. Mia found herself juggling her role at Hartline and her responsibilities at home with Jamie. There were nights when she stayed late at the office, working through the final details of her project, only to rush home to put Jamie to bed. There were moments when she felt like she was balancing on the edge, unsure if she could keep it all together. But every time she felt overwhelmed, Elias's voice echoed in her mind. You're capable of more than you know. It was a reminder she needed, a push to keep going, even when things seemed impossible. One evening, as she was wrapping up for the night, Elias called her into his office. He was standing by the window again, his arms crossed as he looked out over the city. Mia hesitated for a moment before stepping inside. "You wanted to see me?" she asked, trying to hide the nervousness creeping into her voice. Elias turned and gave her a small smile. "Yes, Mia. I've been following your progress closely, and I'm impressed with what you've accomplished so far." Mia's heart skipped a beat. She had come to expect his praise, but hearing it still sent a warm rush through her. "Thank you," she said softly. "It's been a lot of hard work, but I'm really proud of what we've done." Elias nodded, his gaze steady. "I'm proud of you. You've grown so much in such a short time, and I believe this project is just the beginning for you." The words filled her with a sense of accomplishment, but there was a part of her that couldn't quite believe them. She had never been the kind of person who saw herself as a leader, but now, with Elias's words echoing in her mind, she wondered if maybe it was time to start believing in herself. "I want to offer you something more," Elias continued, his voice steady. "I'm putting together a new leadership team, and I think you'd be a perfect fit." Mia froze, unsure if she had heard him correctly. "A leadership team?" she repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. Elias nodded. "You've proven you can lead this project, Mia. Now, I want you to help lead the company. I'm offering you a position on the executive team." Her mind raced. This was bigger than anything she had ever imagined. She had come from a place of barely scraping by, and now, Elias was offering her a seat at the table. She felt a mix of excitement and fear. Was she ready for this? Was she really the right person for this role? I don't know what to say," Mia stammered, her hands shaking slightly. Elias's smile softened. "You don't have to say anything right now. Take your time. But I believe in you, Mia. You've already proven what you're capable of." Mia's heart raced as the weight of his words sank in. This wasn't just about the job. It was about everything she had worked for, the long nights, the sacrifices, the self-doubt. It was about proving to herself that she could achieve more than she ever thought possible. That night, as she walked home, the city lights flickering against the night sky, Mia couldn't help but reflect on everything that had led her here. She had come so far from the days when she was just trying to survive, just trying to make it through the next day. She had found strength she didn't know she had, and now she was standing on the edge of a new beginning. The future was uncertain, but for the first time, Mia felt ready to embrace it. She wasn't just a single mother trying to get by anymore. She was someone who had earned her place, someone who had proven she could handle whatever came next. And as she walked through the door to her apartment, where Jamie was waiting for her, she knew that this was only the beginning. She had a future now, one that was brighter than she had ever imagined. The next few weeks at Hartline were a blur of new responsibilities and overwhelming excitement for Mia. She had accepted the offer to join the executive team, and every day felt like a new chapter in her life. The work was demanding, but for the first time, Mia felt like she was where she was supposed to be. The challenges were bigger, the expectations higher, but she rose to meet them. Elias, as always, was there, guiding her, encouraging her. He didn't micromanage, but he was always available when she needed advice or a sounding board. Their professional relationship grew stronger, and with each passing day, Mia's admiration for him deepened. But what really surprised her was how comfortable she felt in his presence. There was something unspoken between them, a mutual respect that went beyond the office. Sometimes, late in the evening, when everyone else had gone home, Mia would find herself talking with Elias about more than just work. They'd share a laugh or discuss personal projects, and she began to see him as more than just the CEO. He was someone she trusted. It was during one of those late-night conversations that Elias finally addressed the elephant in the room. "Mia," he said, his voice calm, "I've been meaning to ask you something." Mia looked up from the reports she was reviewing, her heart skipping a beat. "What is it?" she asked, her voice steady but curious. Elias hesitated for a moment, as if choosing his words carefully. "I've noticed how much you've grown since you started here," he said slowly. "How you've really stepped into your role. I know you've been balancing a lot, and I just wanted to ask how you're managing everything. How are you doing?" His question caught her off guard. She hadn't expected him to be so perceptive, so aware of the personal struggles she had been juggling along with her professional life. She smiled, though it was a little strained. "I'm doing okay," she said, her voice quieter than she intended. It's been a lot of work, but I'm handling it. I have to. Elias nodded, his eyes not leaving hers. I know it's not easy, especially with everything you've been through, he said gently. But I just want you to know that I'm here if you ever need to talk. You're not in this alone. Mia felt a lump form in her throat. She had always been the one to shoulder everything, to keep it together no matter what. But hearing Elias's words, seeing the sincerity in his eyes, made something inside her break open. She had never realized how much she needed someone to just acknowledge how hard it all was. Thank you, she whispered, her voice thick. I don't know if I've ever heard someone say that before. Elias gave her a small, reassuring smile. You don't need to thank me. You've earned everything you have here, Mia. I believe in you. His words lingered in the air between them, and for a moment, the office was completely still. Mia's mind was racing, but her heart was finally catching up. For the first time, she felt like she wasn't just carrying the weight of her world alone. Elias was there, offering her something she hadn't realized she needed: support, encouragement, and a sense of belonging. As she left his office that night, Mia couldn't help but reflect on how far she had come. She had started this journey as a woman with nothing but hope, and now she was part of something bigger. She had built a life for herself and Jamie, one that was filled with opportunity, growth, and stability. But there was something else she had found along the way, something unexpected. She had found a connection with Elias, someone who had believed in her when she didn't believe in herself. And as she walked home that night, the city lights twinkling above her, she realized that for the first time in her life, she was truly not alone. The future was still uncertain, but Mia knew one thing for sure. She was ready for whatever came next. The path she was on now was one she had carved for herself, and no matter where it led, she knew she would face it with confidence and strength. She had finally found her place, and for the first time in a long time, she could see a future full of promise. The weeks that followed felt like a turning point for Mia. She had finally stepped into the role Elias had offered her, and though the work was demanding, there was a new sense of purpose in everything she did. She wasn't just filling a position anymore. She was shaping the future of the project and, in many ways, the direction of the company. Elias's trust in her had fueled her, and she could feel herself growing in ways she hadn't imagined possible. Every task, no matter how small, felt like a building block toward something bigger. But despite all the progress, Mia couldn't shake the nagging feeling that there was still something missing. Elias had always been supportive, always encouraging, but over time, their professional relationship started to blur with something more personal. He was always there when she needed advice, offering words of encouragement that made her believe in herself even more. The connection between them was undeniable, and Mia found herself thinking about him more than she cared to admit. There were nights when she stayed late at the office, and Elias would stop by to check on her progress. The simple moments they shared, discussing work or just chatting about life, started to feel like they were crossing into a new territory. They weren't just colleagues anymore. They were two people who understood each other in a way that went beyond the office walls. One evening, as Mia worked late, Elias knocked on her office door, a small smile on his face. I thought I might find you here, he said, his voice warm. Mia looked up from her desk, surprised to see him. I'm just finishing up a few things, she said, a little flustered. Elias walked into the room, his eyes scanning the piles of papers on her desk. I can see that. But you've been at this for hours, Mia. Don't you think you should take a break? Mia shook her head, pushing a strand of hair behind her ear. I can't. There's still so much to do, and I want to make sure everything is perfect. Elias stepped closer, his gaze softening as he looked at her. You don't have to do everything by yourself, he said gently. You've done more than enough already. You've proven yourself time and time again. Mia felt a warmth spread through her chest at his words. There was something about the way he spoke to her, so sincerely, so honestly, that made her feel seen in a way she never had before. She had always been so focused on proving herself, on showing everyone that she was capable. But in that moment, Elias was reminding her that it was okay to take a step back, to acknowledge how far she had come. Thank you, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Elias smiled, a soft, genuine smile that made her heart flutter. You're doing great, Mia. Don't forget that. The tension between them was palpable, but neither of them said anything about it. There was a certain comfort in the silence, a shared understanding that neither of them was willing to push too far, too fast. As the night wore on, Mia finished her work, and Elias stayed with her, quietly watching as she crossed off the last item on her to-do list. When it was finally done, Mia looked up at him. "I think I'm done for the night," she said, smiling tiredly. Elias nodded. "Good. You've earned it." As they walked toward the elevator together, Mia couldn't help but feel a sense of contentment settle over her. It wasn't just about the work anymore. It was about the bond they had built, the way they trusted each other, the way they had become more than just colleagues. When they reached the lobby, Elias turned to her, his expression more serious now. "Mia," he said, his voice low, "I know I've said this before, but I want you to know something. I'm proud of you. I've seen how hard you've worked, and I've seen how much you've grown. You've proven yourself in ways that go beyond what anyone could have expected." Mia's breath caught in her throat. She hadn't expected him to say that. Not now, not like this. She met his gaze, her heart pounding in her chest. "Thank you," she whispered. Elias took a step closer, his gaze lingering on hers for a moment before he spoke again. "I don't say this lightly, but I believe in you, Mia. And I think you're ready for whatever comes next." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. For a moment, neither of them moved. It was as though time had stopped, the world outside the building fading away. Mia felt her heart race, her thoughts a whirlwind of emotions. She wasn't sure what Elias meant by whatever comes next, but in that moment, she knew one thing for sure. She was ready. Ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. Ready for whatever might come between her and Elias. Because in that moment, Mia understood something important. She wasn't just the woman who had walked into Hartline all those months ago, unsure of herself. She was someone who had fought for everything she had. And she wasn't about to let anything, anyone, stand in her way. The days turned into weeks, and Mia continued to rise to the occasion. She had earned her place at Hartline, and it was no longer just about the job. It was about everything she had built, the confidence, the growth, the belief in herself. She had come so far from the woman who had walked in with nothing but a desire to change her life. Now, she was a part of something bigger, a part of a team that respected her and saw her for who she truly was. The connection with Elias was undeniable, and while they had kept things professional, there were moments, brief but meaningful, where they shared more than just business. It was subtle, a glance, a quiet conversation, but there was something more in the air between them. Elias had become someone she trusted, someone who had helped her see the potential within herself. And, in turn, Mia began to understand that maybe, just maybe, there was something more between them, something that could grow into something real. One evening, after a particularly long day at work, Mia found herself at her favorite park with Jamie. The sky was painted with the soft hues of sunset, and Jamie was running around, his laughter echoing through the air. Mia watched him, a smile on her face, when her phone buzzed. It was a message from Elias. "Meet me at the rooftop bar at 8. I want to talk." Her heart skipped a beat. She had no idea what this conversation would be about, but part of her already knew. She had felt the tension between them, the way things had shifted. It was hard to ignore. As the clock struck 8, Mia found herself standing in front of the elevator doors on the top floor of Hartline's building. Her hands were shaking slightly, her mind racing with questions. When the doors opened, she stepped out onto the rooftop, where Elias was waiting, his back turned as he looked out over the city. The lights from the skyline reflected in his eyes as he turned to face her. "Mia," he said, his voice soft but steady. "I've been thinking about everything, about how much you've grown, how much you've accomplished, and I realized something important." Mia's heart raced. She took a deep breath, steadying herself. "What is it?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Elias stepped closer, his gaze never leaving hers. "I believe in you, Mia. You're not just a leader at work. You're someone who inspires others, someone who makes a difference. And I need you to know something." He paused, his expression serious. Mia's stomach fluttered, unsure of what was coming next. "What do you need me to know?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. Elias took a step closer, his hand reaching out to gently hold hers. "I'm not just talking about work," he said quietly. "I've been holding back because I didn't want to complicate things, but I can't deny it anymore. I care about you, Mia, more than just as a colleague. I've come to care about you in a way that goes beyond the office. The words hit her like a wave. She had suspected something between them, but hearing it out loud made everything more real. She felt her heart pounding in her chest, unsure of how to respond. For a moment, she just stood there, taking in his words, her mind racing. Elias, she began, her thoughts tangled. I care about you too, she said finally, her voice soft but certain. But everything has been so fast. I don't know if I'm ready for something more. Elias smiled, his thumb brushing over her hand gently. I'm not asking for anything right now, he said. I just needed to tell you how I feel. And I want you to know that no matter what happens, I'll always support you, both here and outside of work. Mia felt a sense of relief wash over her. She didn't know where this would lead, but for the first time, she wasn't afraid of the unknown. She had come to trust Elias, and she realized that she was ready to take this next step, whatever it might be. The night stretched on as they stood there together, the city lights twinkling below them, and for the first time in a long time, Mia felt like she had found a place where she belonged. A place where she could be herself, where she wasn't afraid to take risks, to trust, to open up. The future was still uncertain, but one thing was clear. Mia had the strength to face whatever came next. And with Elias by her side, she knew she could handle anything. The next chapter of her life was just beginning, and she was ready to embrace it fully. She had built a life she could be proud of, and now, she was ready for the love and happiness that came with it.